Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Upgrades. I'm Jeremy Knoll.
And I'm John Suarez.
And we are here today talking about the 2022 Commander Starter decks. And these ones are great. They're all reprints. They're a little bit less expensive than some of the other Commander decks that you'll have alongside of the main sets and the standalones. And they're a really great entry into Commander as a format. So if you are new to the format and new to Magic, welcome. And we are here to tell you a little bit about what this deck does. This is the Token Triumph deck, the green-white deck. A little bit about some of the cool cards that are in the deck and some cards that we suggest looking at to add to the deck as you continue playing. So Token Triumph, green-white, pretty standard for token colors. It's headed up by Amara, Soul of the Accord, which I think you'll find is a pretty good, it's a pretty standard, it's a good token commander.
Yeah.
It's a green and a white, 2/2. Whenever it becomes tapped, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink.
Yeah, they did an excellent job on choosing the generic kind of commanders for these decks.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to go over some of the cards that are in the deck that are notable. And the first one,
it's a big one.
This is a big one. This is probably, as far as dollar value goes, this is the most expensive card, I think, in any of the decks.
I think that's true.
And it is because it is an older card, and this is the first time it's ever being reprinted. And that's Citadel Hierophants. Mm-hmm. It's a 3/2 for 3 and a green. And it says, each creature you control gains tap, add a green to your mana pool, play this ability as a mana source, which if you're new...
It won't say that anymore.
It won't say that anymore. You don't have to worry about that. It'll just be tap, add a green to your mana pool.
Yeah, and your copy will not say that. Yeah, exactly.
Won't say that. The old copy will. But yeah, it was a little over $10, I think, before. This should drive that price down, and if you get it right out of the box, it's a great way to make sure that all of your little creatures are going to be able to add extra mana so that you can play bigger spells and more spells in a turn.
Kudos to them for finding that card from Urza's Saga in 1998.
It's definitely one that I've eyed a lot for my green-white tokens deck, and it's an interesting one.
Like, hey, how about we reprint this one? Mm-hmm. Everybody's like, it's probably reserved.
No, it's good.
The next card we have is excellent in a lot of creature-based green decks, but is going to be very good in this deck, and that's Champion of Lambolt. Mm-hmm. Colorless green, human warrior, 1/1. Creatures with power less than it can't block creatures you control. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of Lambolt. So your tokens will quickly grow the champion and make all of your other stuff unblockable.
Yeah, make everything unblockable. And Champion and the next card, Loyal Guardians, which is a 4/4 Rhino for 4 and a green, trample, and it has Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Mm-hmm. That's going to make all your creatures bigger. We've talked about both of these before in previous episodes of Upgrades as cards to add to the deck. So I'm really happy to see both of them in this deck by default. Yep. It's really great to see that. But yeah, it's really great. If you have your commander's 2 mana, it's going to be able to be cast multiple times. So there's a very good chance you're going to have it in play along with the Loyal Guardian at the same time.
They also included the card Scavenging Ooze. Colorless green, 2/2. It's an ooze, and you pay green. Exile a card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, you'll get a +1/+1 counter on the ooze, and you gain a life.
Yep.
So just nice to have graveyard removal for the zombie deck.
Exactly.
That exists in this cycle of decks.
Exactly. There's good ways to do that. To be able to get rid of the cards that they want to keep playing. So, and it's a very good card on its own. You can grow it pretty quickly and gain a little extra life. Our next one is another Lieutenant creature, and that's Thunderfoot Baloth. It's 4 green for a 5/5 trample. Has Lieutenant, and as long as you control your commander, it gets +2/+2, and other creatures you control get +2/+2 and have trample.
Yeah.
Which is a really, really good way to be able to get through all of the nonsense that's going to be clogging the board and be able to take some people down. So,
a great way to draw cards in the deck already. Slate of Ancestry from Onslaught, all the way back from there. 4 colorless artifact. Pay 4, tap it, discard your hand. So you want to kind of play your hand out before you activate it or get rid of the cards you don't want. And then you draw a card for every creature you control.
Yep. Really great way to draw a bunch of cards in a deck that's looking to, as you said, play out your hand pretty much every turn. Yep. And it was reprinted in the Elves versus Goblins.
It sure was.
So that was great. Another card that John and I have actually talked about quite a lot in our upgrade episodes. It's Felidar Retreat. So there's another card that you could put into decks called Cathars Crusade that gets a little cumbersome because it adds +1/+1 counters for every creature that enters the battlefield. This one, it says it's an enchantment for 3 and a white, and it says landfall whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, choose one, create a 2/2 white cat beast creature token, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. So it doesn't get as out of hand. You can definitely find ways, as we talked about, to put extra cards into the battlefield in other episodes where you can play
get multiple lands at once.
To get multiple lands at once to get that effect more than once per turn, but it's not going to be nearly as obnoxious as something like Cathars Crusade, but it's really good. It's really, really good, and we highly suggest adding it to any deck. So it's great that it came in this deck.
Yep. Obvious Wrath to add or to have in this deck, Hour of Reckoning, 4 colors, white. It's a sorcery, it has Convoke, and it destroys all non-token creatures. That was the, if I had to pick a Wrath that was going to be in the token deck, obviously the one that doesn't destroy tokens is the clear winner there.
The one that you really want.
Yep.
Speaking of destroying, another way to make sure that your creatures aren't destroyed is Rootborn Defenses. It's 2 and a white, instant populate, which means choose a token that you control, make another copy of it, and creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn.
Yep.
So.
And the last card to note that comes stock with the deck is Idol of Oblivion. This card is always good if you can make it active on a regular basis. 2 colors, artifact, you tap to draw a card, and you can only activate it if you created a token this turn. And then later in the game, you can pay 8, tap it, sacrifice it, make a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi token. You're really using this to draw cards. That's what you want this for. The late game ability is nice for kind of like, you don't have much going on, have a bunch of mana, let's make a giant creature. But otherwise, you're just going to keep drawing cards.
All right, so looking into cards that we would upgrade this deck with, our first one is actually a very recent card. This comes from Dominaria United, which just came out very recently compared to when these decks are coming out. And that is Queen Alanil of Rodak. And it is a legendary creature, Elf Noble, for green, white. There are going to be quite a few creatures that are going to have this ability of its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. However, it also has the added benefit of if 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier creature token are created instead. So because you're going to be creating so many creature tokens, you're going to be creating an extra token on top of that. And then this gets bigger as you do that.
To continue drawing cards in the token deck, you can play cards like Shamanic Revelation. 3 colors, green, sorcery, draw a card for each creature you control. And then it has Ferocious, so if you've been able to pump up your tokens to a bigger power, you gain 4 life for each creature you control of power 4 or greater.
Yeah. So there might be a couple, and it might be relevant if you have something like Queen Alanil or Champion of Lambholt or something like that, or the Thunderfoot Baloth. Things like that are going to gain you that incidental 4 life per creature you have. So definitely worth it.
Yep.
Our next one is one that is a little bit less cumbersome, as we've said before, a little bit less salty than some other options that you can have. Drum Bellower is a 2 and a white spirit, flying 2/1, and it says untap all creatures you control during each other player's untap step. So there are other cards like Seaborn Muse. You could put it in, they're a little more expensive, and make people a little bit more salty because you get to untap all of your lands as well.
Everything.
Untap everything. You get to untap all your lands, all your mana, everything that's relevant. This one, it's only your creatures. So if you're attacking with everything, or if you're playing against like the Go deck that forces you to attack, you can untap them all and make sure you have some blockers for anything that's on the ground. And it's a really good way to also be able to use some abilities that you might have here and there.
Speaking of abilities and tapped and untapped creatures, we have Sarath, the Viper's Fang. 2 colors, green, 3/4. It's a legendary creature, human warlock. Other tapped creatures you control have Death Touch. Other untapped creatures you control have Hexproof. And then you can pay 1 and tap this to untap another target creature or land you control.
Yeah, it's really good. It's going to be really great against the Go deck, especially that wants you to attack and being able to just, okay, they all have Death Touch now.
Yep.
Or being able to protect you from whatever sort of removal spell they have by giving them all Hexproof as well. Another relatively new card came out within the last year of when this was released is Best Soul Nourisher. It's from Streets of New Capenna. It's 1 green and white for a 1/1 legendary creature, human citizen. Whenever 1 or more other creatures with base power and toughness 1/1 enter the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Best Soul Nourisher. Nourisher. Whenever Bess attacks, each other creature you control with base power and toughness 1/1 gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Bess. Note that it does say base power and toughness 1/1. So that's going to care a lot about the tokens that you have that are going to be 1/1s. Even if they have counters on them, the +1/+1 counters, they're still going to have that base and still going to be able to get in. So even your Champion of Lambhold, which is going to have a bunch of other ones, if that's going to be attacking, it's also going to get the bonus from Bess as well. So really cool card to add in.
Yep. Next card we have is Doomed Artisan. 2 colors and a white 1/1 Human Artificer. Sculptures you control can't attack or block, and at the beginning of your end step, you create a colorless sculpture artifact creature token with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of sculptures you control. So every turn, sculpture, then another sculpture, or populate a sculpture.
Yep.
And then whenever this is gone, the sculptures come alive.
Yep. You get 2/2s, and then 3/3s, and then 4/4s.
Yeah, it gets out of hand real fast.
And then you
doesn't
block
take
with
many
this,
turns,
and you've got a bunch of active tokens that can work. Also, Doomed Artisan 1/1 helps out with Bess as well. Our next one is another Wrath effect, another Destroy All Creatures effect that also works pretty well in token decks, and that is Martial Coup. It's X white sorcery. Create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So you're going to be able to make however many soldiers. If you've got that 5 or more, get rid of all the rest of those. Get rid of those big scary dragons. Get rid of the the zombie army that's coming after you. And now you've got set up for your next turn.
Yeah, this would have been the second choice on the if I had to pick a Wrath in this deck.
Exactly.
All right, Jeremy, go ahead.
This is one of my favorites more recently. Strixhaven Stadium. It's a 3-mana artifact. Taps to add a colorless, and you add a point counter to Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, you remove a point counter from it. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, you put a point counter on it. Then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all, and that player loses the game. I really like this because it lets you kind of finagle a little bit. It's not
it's a
you
little
win
sub-game.
the game. Yeah, it's not a you win the game card where, it's just as soon as you have it, you win. It's I'm going to attack you now, and if my creature gets through, I'm going to have enough counters that you're out of here.
Yep.
But I really like that one.
Next card we have one of my favorites from way back in Judgment, Miraris Wake. 3 colors, green and a white enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1, which is great in your token deck. And then whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced.
Yeah. This has definitely seen like some reprints. It was most recently in
Modern Rises 2.
Modern Rises 2, yep. And it's seen a couple of reprints and stuff like that. And it's a really solid card in green-white, and especially in a token deck.
Yes.
Our last one is Horn of Valhalla. And this one is from Commander Legends Battle at Baldur's Gate, so it came out within the last year of this being these decks coming out. This one's really good because it allows you to go both wide and tall. So wide is having a bunch of creatures on board, even if they're small, and tall is having one really big creature that can get through. This kind of lets you do both in one card. So it's an artifact equipment for 1 and a white, but it has adventure on it. So adventure is you cast it as Ysgard's Call, which is X white, create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, and then it goes on an adventure, and later you can cast it for 1 and a white, and it equips for 3, and the equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control.
It's a good card.
It's really good. It gets something really big, and if you've got something that has trample or some sort of evasion, it makes it really scary really fast.
Yep.
So that is all of our suggestions for new cards, or for cards to add into this new deck, Token Triumph, that is a reprint only deck. Overall, I think these are really great decks.
I'm pretty happy with them. I did notice that they do all have an exceptionally large amount of lands, which is good for new players.
Yes.
The last thing you want as a new player is to not draw lands. It's the least fun you can have when you want to cast your spells and you don't have the lands to do it. So you'll learn as you play how many lands you want in the deck.
Exactly.
trimming here or there, you'll learn. You're going to cut too many and you're going to learn real fast. That's not cool.
I wouldn't say exceptionally high.
40 in some of these decks?
Some
This one has 39.
This one has 39, 40.
40 lands?
Yeah, they're not being like 42, 43. So that's where I'm at. They also
splitting hairs.
Yeah, splitting hairs, definitely. And a lot of the lands are also basics, which is
That's true.
So overall, I think these are a great pickup if
I
you're
agree.
new to the game, and even if have been playing for years and years, they're a great pickup to be able to just jam some very basic Commander games with your friends without a lot of the splash that you get from having a highly tuned deck. So let us know in the comments what cards you would add to the Token Triumphs deck, and also let us know which one of these 5 decks that you would like to play most out of the box with your friends at game night. Also make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified of all new episodes here on the SCG Commander channel. For John Suarez, I am Jeremy Knoll. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.